All right, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. We're going to get started now with our presentation. My name is Mark. I am the Communications and Community Engagement Manager for RIPIN, and I want to welcome you to our presentation with Jean Fay from the Sherlock Center. It's going to talk to us about youth employment, work incentives, Social Security, lots of good stuff. Throughout the presentation, at any point, you can submit your questions. You can click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, or you can type them into the chat window. We're going to hold the questions mostly for the end of the presentation, but feel free to type things in and send them along as they come to you throughout the show, and we'll do our best to answer them. That's pretty much it. I'm going to turn it over to our friend Jean Fay from the Sherlock Center with today's presentation.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. I'm sure that most of you would rather be at the beach, just as I would myself, but here we are, so we may as well learn something. So today we're going to talk about youth and employment, particularly on students who have SSI benefits. So today's agenda, as I said, is youth employment, an overview of the different benefits that students may have. We're going to talk about SSI eligibility and possible changes at age 18. We'll talk about some of the work incentives that may apply to SSI. We'll talk about Medicaid, reporting wages to Social Security and other agencies, ABLE accounts, and resources. So that's a lot to do in 1 hour, but let's see how far we can get. So before we begin, I want to just mention that although it's a great start that you're here today and listening to some information about SSI and working, it's important to know that you can get individualized benefits counseling if you have a son or a daughter who's a student, or if you're a student yourself. If you have a client who's a student, you can refer them for individualized services. They can learn about the impact of earnings on SSI or SSDI, Medicaid, Medicare, to learn about work incentives that are available, talk about wage reporting options, and how they may be able to avoid or reduce a Social Security overpayment. To access benefits counseling, the best way to do it is probably to call the Work Incentive Planning and Assistance Ticket to Work Helpline at 1-866-968-7842, or TTY is 1-866-833-2967. You can also contact me directly at jfay@ric.edu, or call me at 456-4733. Other sources for benefits counseling are to talk to your ORS counselor, if you have one, about a referral, or if you are involved with BHDDH, you can ask your social worker about sending you a referral for benefits counseling. Okay, so the first slide, slide 4, the first actual slide for the presentation, talks about some of the benefits of employment. Okay, as students become adults, work is now considered to be an expected adult role. So whether or not a person has a disability, once they become an adult in our society, they're expected to work. And working is a good thing because it helps us to use the skills we have and to develop new skills and goals, which is important in life. We're always moving forward when we work. It also affords new opportunities for friendships and social activities. Working makes life more balanced, more satisfying, and meaningful. Of course, it also increases financial well-being. And in addition to that, paying Social Security taxes can eventually result in eligibility for a different benefit called Social Security Disability Insurance, and also in the distant future for Social Security retirement benefits, which may be much more than you are currently receiving on SSI, depending on how much you work. All right, now we're going to have a little overview of benefits and SSI. All right, first of all, I want to talk about some of the different benefits that children or students, high school students, college students, may receive that are not SSI, but that are often confused with SSI. Okay, before you have benefits counsel, it's really important, or before you make any decisions about work, it's important to be sure that you know which benefit your child, you, or your client receives. So one very common benefit that children may receive is called children's benefits or survivors benefits, and occasionally you'll hear it referred to as dependents benefits. This is a benefit that's usually received by a child who is under 18, and it's based not on the child's work, but on the parent's work record. And the parent must be either deceased, retired, or disabled. The child is not required to be disabled in order to receive the benefit, but the child may be disabled in some situations. The second benefit is the benefit we'll be talking about today, which is Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. Supplemental Security Income, when a child is under age 18, is based on the child's disability and the family's need. So even if a child is severely disabled, if the family doesn't have financial need, the child will not be awarded SSI benefits. Now, this can change once the child turns 18, because at that point in time, if the disability still exists and is still severe, then the parental income is no longer counted and the parental resources are no longer counted when the student turns 18. A third benefit that a few high school students and many college students may receive is Social Security Disability Insurance, usually called SSDI. In order to get SSDI, the student must be disabled and must have worked and paid into Social Security. Now, for an adult to get SSDI, we usually need to have about 40 credits if we're a little older, but students can get SSDI after only about a year and a half of work. So that's an interesting thing to be aware of, because people who receive SSI benefits sometimes will get a letter from Social Security saying that their benefits are going to change to SSDI, or they may receive partial SSDI and partial SSI. Okay, so what can you do if your child or yourself or your client has been receiving children's benefits or survivors benefits or dependents benefits, and they end, because these benefits usually end at 18, sometimes age 19 if the person is still in high school. However, if the person is disabled who is receiving the benefits, they can go to Social Security and apply for a different benefit called CDB, which stands for Childhood Disability Benefits. These benefits are a continuation, sort of a continuation of the child's benefits, but based on disability. Remember, children's benefits do not have to be based on disability, but if the child happens to be disabled, these benefits can be available once the child loses the children's benefits. And they can continue for a very long time, depending on the work that the person does, and depending on the parent. Remember, the parent must either be deceased, disabled, or retired, and the person's disability must have begun before the age of 22 if he or she is to be eligible for these benefits. So again, I'll repeat that it's very important to understand which benefits the student that you were working with, or your child, or yourself, understand which benefits, exactly which kind of benefits you have before talking about work incentives that may apply. All right, now the main topic of today is SSI, okay, because it would be too much to go into detail on each benefit in 1 hour. So if the following apply to your child, to your student, or to yourself, or to a client that you're working with, then the child probably gets SSI benefits. The person must have a disability. They must get paid on the first of each month. They must receive $783 or less in 2020. These figures change every year, okay, from the federal government. They may also receive a small payment of either $39.92 or $51.92 from the state of Rhode Island. This is known as an SSI supplement. So Rhode Island offers a little supplement to the SSI check from the federal government. And another indicator that a person may be receiving SSI is that if they automatically received a Medicaid card and had Medicare just at the same time as their SSI payments began, then you can be pretty sure that it's SSI that the person is receiving. Another thing that is important, especially for high school students, is something called the age 18 redetermination. Now, when a child gets SSI, many times families become dependent on that money, and they believe that the SSI is going to continue forever because the child was born with a disability. Unfortunately, for many families, that's not the case. At age 18, Social Security does a review of the child's disability, and Social Security may decide that the child is no longer disabled. At 18, they use a more stringent adult medical standard to make the decision. And so some children who were found disabled at birth or 4 or 5 or 10 will no longer be considered disabled at age 18, and parents should prepare for this possibility. However, if you do get one of those letters in the mail, you do have some options. One option is to appeal the decision. If you strongly disagree and you believe that the child is significantly disabled and is probably going to have a difficult time working, then you can appeal Social Security's decision. If you kind of agree that the child's disability has improved significantly, but you still need the SSI benefits until the student is working, you can request something called Section 301. Section 301 is a work incentive that may allow the SSI benefits, the cash payments, and the Medicaid to continue temporarily while the student completes his or her vocational plan. Now, the plan must be a plan that is likely to result in his or her permanent removal from the benefit rolls. So if a child is involved with ORS and you get one of these letters saying that the child's benefits are going to stop because he or she is no longer medically disabled and the child just recently turned 18, you can talk to the ORS counselor, or you can seek out benefits counseling to learn more about this important work incentive called Section 301. Now, on the other hand, some students who were denied SSI as children may become eligible for SSI benefits at age 18. Again, the disability must be severe and the person must be able to work at what Social Security calls a substantial gainful activity, or SGA level. Now, SGA is kind of a complex concept, but in general, countable monthly earnings above $1,260 if the person has a disability, or above $2,110 per month if the person has statutory blindness, indicate that the person is able to work at a substantial gainful activity level. However, like I said, these amounts are not cast in stone, they're just guidelines. Okay? So if a child has a severe disability and is earning $600 a month, you might want to have them apply for SSI benefits. At age 18, remember, the income and assets of the parents are no longer counted. Now, the child's assets cannot be more than $2,000 or he or she will not get SSI. So be careful about saving money in a regular savings account for a child who has a disability. We'll talk about ways that you can save, however, later in this webinar. Okay, now some children at 18 who apply, I say children, they're really adults, young adults, will get a full SSI payment. And that amount, as I said earlier, is $783 a month in 2020. Others, though, especially if they live with their families, may get a reduced SSI payment if the parents are providing free food and shelter or paying for a portion of their food and shelter. So not everyone will get the full $783. Now in Rhode Island, not in every state, but in many states and in Rhode Island, SSI recipients automatically get Medicaid. So some people are a little hesitant about applying for SSI, but I have to say that applying for SSI and getting Medicaid along with it can be a really good thing for a person with a disability, because you'll see later that it's a special Medicaid that they get, and it's a good kind of Medicaid to have. And as I said earlier, Rhode Island also provides a small SSI supplement. Today, we'll also be talking about some of the SSI work incentives. So just to list a few, you see that we have a student earned income exclusion, which is a great work incentive for students. There are earned and general income disregards, which are automatic. Social Security applies these to everyone when they go to work. Impairment related work expenses, blind work expenses, plan for achieving self-support, and continuation of Medicaid through a rule known as 1619B. So we're going to take a look individually at each of these work incentives. All right, so I would say that the student earned income exclusion is the most important work incentive for students. Many students are able to work with little or no impact on their SSI payments. This is because through this student earned income exclusion, so Social Security excludes or does not count up to $1,900 per month of wages that the student earns. The maximum exclusion for the year, however, is $7,670. Now, this is a 2020 figure, and these amounts do change every year. So a student must be in high school, college, or in some type of a job training program. The student earned income exclusion will end when the student leaves school or when the student turns 22, whichever comes first. Now, to qualify for the student earned income exclusion, the person must be under age 22 and regularly attending school, taking one or more courses of study and attending classes. So they must be in a college or university for at least 8 hours a week. They must be in grades 7 to 12 for at least 12 hours per week. They must be in some kind of a employment preparation training program or course for 12 hours a week or 15 hours a week if the course involves some type of shop practice. Now, in some cases, they may attend school less for reasons beyond the student's control. Okay, and that will be up to Social Security to decide if the student is eligible for the student earned income exclusion. Reasons beyond a student's control might include something like illness or COVID-19, I suppose, could qualify. Whoops. Okay, now on this slide, I am going to show you the most basic SSI calculation. Wait a minute. No, I'm not. On this slide, slide 14, I'm going to show you the most basic SSI calculation. Sorry about that. All right, so let's say these are called the automatic income disregards or automatic income exclusions. Let's say a student goes to work after school, maybe a few hours on weekends, earns gross monthly wages of $600 a month. So on the left side, you see a chart with $600 a month. Social Security will automatically, now this is assuming that the person is not eligible for the student earned income exclusion, okay? Because I want to show you how that works first. So the general income exclusion that is allowed is a $20 exclusion. Now, if the person had another type of income called unearned income, which means income that the person does not earn. So it could be $100 a month that grandma sends. It could be SSDI benefits that the person receives, whatever. That $20 would be taken away from the unearned income. But in this situation, we're going to keep it simple and assume that the only income the person has is his or her SSI check and earnings from work. So Social Security will first exclude the first $20 that the person earns, bringing the remainder to $580. The next exclusion, or the first half of the next exclusion, is called part of the earned income exclusion. And that's a $65 exclusion. So far, we have 600 minus 20 is 580, minus 65 comes to a remainder of 515. Now, the second part of the earned income exclusion is that Social Security only counts half of the remainder. So 515 divided by 2 means that Social Security is going to find that this person has total countable income of $257.50. So what that means is that out of the gross wages of $600 that the person earned, Social Security is going to deduct a total of $257.50 from their SSI payment. So in the chart on the right-hand side, you can see that 783 minus 257.50 means the person will now receive an adjusted SSI payment of $525.50. In addition, they're going to get their Rhode Island SSI supplement of $39.92 for a total SSI payment, federal and state, of $565.42. Now, when you add in the person's gross wages of $600, the total income this person will have is $1,165.42. Now, you'll see that I haven't deducted any taxes. This is because even though taxes may be taken from the person's check, they will probably be able to get those taxes back when they do their tax return. So you can see that even though there is a reduction in the SSI payment when the person goes to work, they come out better off in the end financially. And plus they're working and hopefully they're enjoying the job. The next work incentive I'd like to talk about is impairment-related work expenses, also called IRWE, okay, for short. Now, IRWE are out-of-pocket costs for items or services that are related to a person's disability and that he or she needs in order to work. Some examples of impairment-related work expenses might include medications, medical equipment or supplies, medical services, special transportation, etc. Right now, as a result of the impairment-related work expenses, the person may still have a reduction in their SSI check, but you will see that the reduction will be a smaller reduction than normal when the person was working. Now, impairment-related work expenses are not automatic. They must be reported to Social Security and they must be approved by Social Security. One of the biggest ones that people use is if they need to take the ride van to get to and from work, it can get very expensive. So that should definitely be one of the expenses that is reported to Social Security. And you should save receipts when you buy RIP tickets or save some kind of proof that you have used this form of transportation so that you can ask Social Security about using this work incentive. Basically, it results in your being, I want to say reimbursed, but it's not exactly a reimbursement, but your SSI check increases by about half of the amount of what you spend in impairment-related work expenses, as you'll see, I think, on the next slide. Okay, so here is the basic SSI calculation that I just showed you. But in this example, we're going to use impairment-related work expenses of $100 per month. So let's say that this person has gross monthly wages of $600. We keep the numbers low to keep it easy, keep it simple, okay? So the 85 is, to fit it on the page, I lumped together the $20 general income exclusion and the $65 earned income exclusion. So we deduct, Social Security would deduct 85 from the person's gross earnings, leaving us with a remainder of $515. $515 minus $100 comes to $415. And if you remember the second part of the exclusion, oh, I'm sorry, the $100 is the impairment related work expense. It goes in between the two parts of the earned income exclusion. So after deducting the $85, but before dividing the remainder in half, that's where we subtract the impairment related work expense. So we have 415 divided by 2 in this example, which results in $207.50 of total countable income. If you remember in the last example, we had $257.50. So $50 less in this example will be deducted from the person's SSI cash payment. So now we have 783 minus 207.50 instead of 257.50. So the SSI payment is 575.50 instead of, I think the last one was 525.50. So then we add that amount, the SSI amount, to the SSI supplement to get a total of $615.42 in SSI. We add the wages of $600. This person has $50 more than in the last example because they used impairment-related work expenses of $100. So the total monthly income for this individual would be $1,215.42 per month. Now, here is an example of someone using the student earned income exclusion. This person is also working, earning $600. Before working, this person had $783 in SSI, $39.92 in the SSI supplement, for a total of $822.92 per month. Not a whole lot of money, although I'm sure whatever it is, it's appreciated. But now this person goes out, he's in high school, he goes out and gets a little part-time job, again, earning $600 a month, okay? Now, with the SSI and the monthly gross wages, he now has $1,422.92 per month. So this is the best outcome yet. The reason, the reason is that his monthly earnings are less than the $1,900 that Social Security will exclude for students. So all $600, it will be excluded or not counted every month. So he's going to have zero countable income because none of his earnings will be counted. Now, we said earlier that the student exclusion in 2020 goes up to $7,670. So if he earns only $600 for 12 months of the year, that's $7,200. So he is never going to lose a penny of his SSI check in 2020 as long as he remains a student. He's under the age of 22 and he keeps on working. So he could have an annual gross total income of $17,075.04, which is not too bad for a high school student who's only working on a limited basis. So let's compare, okay? With the basic SSI calculation, the student received $1,165.42 a month. The SSI payment was reduced. using $100 in impairment-related work expenses and earning $600 a month, the student was entitled to $1,215.42 because they had $50 more than their SSI cash payment. Now, with the student earned income exclusion and all of the student's income being disregarded, the student was able to have $1,422.92 per month, which translates to more than $17,000 a year. The student gets the full SSI payment, plus gets to keep all of his wages. So as you can see, high school is a perfect opportunity for a person to explore their ability to work and to also earn income to save for whatever they want to save for their future, whether that's college or whether it's a car or whatever it might be important to that student. So it's a great time to get people excited about working because they see the full benefit, the full financial benefit. Now, in a little bit, we'll be talking about a plan for achieving self-support, which is something, that a student can use to save for future goals, future work goals, actually. And we'll discuss how that works. But in that case, the student might also be able to keep all SSI plus earnings and have the full $1,422.92. Now, keep in mind that these examples I showed you, the student was receiving the full SSI payment of $783 in 2020. Now, there might be cases, your own situation might be different because before working, you might be starting with an SSI payment of, say, $522 or $600. Not everyone will get the full SSI payment. Another work incentive that I would just like to touch on is called a BWE, or a blind work expense. These are similar to IRWEs, or impairment-related work expenses, except that they're a little more broad when you're blind, because they don't just include disability-related expenses, but any expenses that a person incurs in order to work. They don't have to be related to blindness. A person must be receiving SSI benefits due to statutory blindness in order to be able to use this work incentive. Now, when a person has blind work expenses, sometimes the SSI payment is only reduced slightly or occasionally not at all because of the broad nature of these expenses. They can include expenses related to caring for a service or a guide dog, food, veterinarian licenses, and so on, grooming probably, transportation for the blind individual to or from work, state, local, and federal taxes. Now, that's not the case for impairment-related work expenses, but it is for blind work expenses. Also included are fees for joining organizations for blind individuals. So BWEs can be, and very often are, much higher than impairment-related work expenses and can allow a person to keep a greater part, if not all, of the SSI check. Let me just stop for a minute. I'm not sure, I don't have the clock in front of me, but I feel like I'm talking fast. So Mark, do we have any questions at this time?
Not as yet, Jean. You're doing great though. Folks, if you do have any questions, feel free to click the Q&A button or submit them via the chat function, and
Yep.
Jean will do her best to answer them. But so far, Jean, you're good.
Okay, very good. I must be explaining things in a way that you can understand, I hope. Okay, so here's an example of somebody using blind work expenses. Again, this person has gross monthly wages of $600, which, by the way, most people would probably be earning more than that now during COVID-19. Most people are getting more than minimum wage. But I said I wanted to use a low number just to keep the math kind of easy. Math is not my forte, and I don't know if it's yours. So, okay, so Again, we take the $20 general income exclusion and we kind of combine it with the earned income exclusion. We subtract 600 minus 85 by 15. Now we divide by 2 immediately. That's one of the differences with the blind work expenses. Instead of taking away the early after the $85, first we divide by 2. So we get the $257.50 by 15 divided by 2 is $257.50. And then, so we've done the whole earned income exclusion, the minus 85 and the half of the remaining income. Then we deduct the blind work expenses. So this person gets $257.50 minus 300. So obviously they have 0 countable income. You can't use a negative number there, but so nothing is taking away from this individual's SSI payment. So this person is going to get an adjusted federal SSI payment. It's not really adjusted. They get the $783 plus the $39.92 from the state. So they have a total SSI payment of $822.92 plus the $600 of gross monthly wages, which means they have a total monthly income of $1,422.92. So these things are really incentives for a person on SSI to want to go to work, including people with disabilities and especially people who are blind. Now the PASS account is a sort of new thing. It's only been around for several years. And so far, I just heard the other day, we only have 50,000 people in the country approximately who are using PASS plans. So I hope after today, some of you may go out and start one for your son or daughter. I recently did it for my daughter who is disabled, and I was amazed that it was quite easy to do. A PASS account is, as you know, when you have SSI, you're limited to having, normally limited to having only $2,000 in savings. If you have more than $2,000 in savings in an account with your child's name on it, or even in several accounts and they total up to $2,000, the person can lose their SSI and Medicaid. So people used to have to go out, spend their money, sometimes foolishly, when they really were worried about losing SSI benefits. So a few years ago, they came out with what they call ABLE accounts, which stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. It allows a person with a disability and their family members to contribute to a savings account for them, which does not affect SSI or Medicaid. And Social Security doesn't count the funds that are in a PASS, and therefore it's not considered countable income, and there'll be no reduction in the SSI payment. Now, a PASS must provide a written description of a vocational goal and your plan of how you're going to achieve it. I'm sorry, did I say plan for achieving? I think I started talking about ABLE. I'm sorry, my mind is just starting to wander now. But what we're really talking about here is a plan for achieving self-support. I have another slide on ABLE, and I think I got myself confused. Anyway, a PASS allows you to set aside money for disability-related expenses and not disability-related expenses, for vocational expenses, expenses involved in reaching a vocational goal. The goal must be feasible, and it must be expected to significantly reduce your need for SSI payments. The way that it works is you set aside funds to pay for certain expenses that you've told Social Security about that you expect to incur in reaching your goals. So some examples might be college tuition, fees, books, school supplies, a computer. You might need to pay for a job training program, equipment or inventory to start a small business, or transportation to and from school or work. Okay, here's an example. Okay, this person was earning gross monthly wages of $1,000 $540 a month. And now normally that would significantly affect the SSI payment if a person was not a student. Okay, so we take the minus 85, that comes to 1455, divide by 2, just using here the basic formula. That person has countable income of $727.50. Now, without the student earned income exclusion, that would nearly wipe out a person's SSI payment. They'd only get, $783 minus $727.50. So they'd have a very small SSI payment. However, if the individual were to request fill out a PASS application and submit it to Social Security, and Social Security were to approve the PASS, the person could put that amount in a special bank account, a separate account that they don't use on a normal basis, to pay for college, job training, or other things like business expenses, job coaching, child care if they needed it, transportation to and from work, so on. Now, if the PASS was used, Social Security would continue to give this person a full SSI payment to pay for his or her living expenses. So the person really would not be losing any of that money that they earned through work, because they would be saving a good portion of it, the $727.50, in order to be able to help pay for things they needed in the future to achieve a vocational goal. Now, PASS is very, very good work incentive and is not used often enough. It's very underutilized because people see that there's a 14-page application and they back off from it. They back away, they're afraid. But a benefits or a work incentive specialist can help you to fill out that application, or at least go through the application with you and show you what you need. And most of it is just common sense questions like, what is your goal? Why is this a good goal for you? Why do you think you'll be successful at this particular occupation? What are the steps you're going to take to get to this, to get from point A to point B? So I've seen people use PASSes very successfully, and it really, really, it's so much better than having your SSI check reduced, because then sometimes people get frustrated and feel like, gee, I'm working hard, but I'm not getting to keep everything that I earn because my SSI check gets reduced. So a PASS is a great example, a great work incentive, sorry, for a person who has a future goal. Okay, I think I'm just going to go back a minute. I'm wondering what happened to those ABLE slides. They must be at the end. I'm sorry. Okay, one thing that is very, very important when you are working is that you must report your earnings to your local Social Security office. Okay, well, you can report to the national office, but the best thing really is to call your local Social Security office. And you will be receiving the addresses and phone numbers for the local offices in Rhode Island. Most people know which one is their local office. Ask them how they like earnings to be reported. And also, if you think that you may have impairment related work expenses, or if you're a student and you want to use the student earned income exclusion, then tell Social Security that you're a student. Tell them what school, you might have to send in some proof that you're a student, but because it's really, otherwise they will deduct some of your earnings from your SSI check. So telling them about that you're eligible and that you know about the student earned income exclusion is really important, because I've seen people not get it because they didn't mention it to Social Security and Social Security didn't ask. Right. Some of the claims reps who work at Social Security may be new, or they may not have worked much with students before. So they may not be, these exclusions may not always be the first thing on their minds. So make sure you ask about these work incentives so that you'll be able to use them. Okay, so as far as reporting wages, you can use something, you can use a wage reporting line, which
Yeah.
basically is you just call from a regular phone and it's an automated process. Or if you have a smartphone, which most people do now, you can use a smartphone app to report your earnings. However, if you have impairment-related work expenses, you cannot report earnings that way. So in that case, most people will actually mail in or bring in, physically bring in person, their pay stubs from the month. You have to report your earnings from every single month, the gross earnings now. Social Security always uses gross by the beginning of the following month. Okay, usually by, I think by the 6th of the month. So if you earn $800 in April, you want to report that to Social Security by May 6th, if possible, that you earned those gross wages. Remember, gross, not net. Okay, if you do not report your earnings to Social Security, they will not know that they should maybe some changes in your SSI payment, and you could be overpaid, okay, by Social Security. And if they pay you too much, they usually will eventually figure that out and they'll want the money back. So definitely report your earnings to Social Security every month. Another way to report is to use what's called a My Social Security account. You can go to the website, the Social Security website, you see the link there, and you can open up a My Social Security account. And that's a good thing to do, but make sure you save your password if you do it. But it's a good thing to do because you can find out information about what's on your Social Security record. You can find out if the correct earnings were put into your record for that year. You can find out information about work incentives. You may be able to request a Social Security card. I think they're working on allowing people to get new Social Security cards through this account. So it's a great way to be able to kind of track your earnings with Social Security and make sure they always have correct information. And as I said earlier, you can always write to, fax, or visit your local Social Security office, but remember to bring your pay stubs. And also, if you have impairment-related work expenses, bring the receipts to prove that you have those expenses so that Social Security can do your can calculate your SSI check correctly. Medicaid and working. This is an important topic because some people are in a position that they don't worry too much about the SSI cash payments, but they're very concerned about Medicaid. Because remember, if you have a disability, especially if you get services through BHDDH or you have a very serious health condition where you're hospitalized frequently, Medicaid can be an extremely important health insurance. It pays for things that many health insurance, private health insurance companies don't even pay for. So Medicaid is important. When you get Medicaid and you have SSI, your Medicaid will continue while you're working and receiving an SSI payment, even if it's a reduced payment, even if it's reduced to as small as $1 per month. And in addition to that, there's a rule called 1619B. The 1619B rule allows Medicaid to continue even if you earn so much money and you're not eligible for the student exclusion any longer, and your SSI check decreases down to 0, which is called the break-even point. That's the point where you earn so much money that you no longer get an SSI cash payment. But you may still qualify for Medicaid through the 1619B rule. In order to use 1619B, you must have had SSI for at least 1 month. Your Medicaid must have stopped because of your earnings or because of your earnings in combination with other income that you have. You must also meet all other SSI requirements, including the resource limits, which again are $2,000 for an individual or $3,000 for a married couple. Now with 1619B, you're allowed to earn up to a certain limit that's known as the threshold limit. This amount changes every year, In 2020, it's $33,557. In some extreme cases where a person has very high medical expenses, an individualized threshold amount may be calculated. So some people may be able to earn more than the $33,557. Now, if a person happens to earn more than that, and I hope some of you do, okay, then another program may apply, and that is known as the Sherlock Plan. It has nothing to do with the Sherlock Center on Disabilities, except that it was, the idea for it, I believe, came from a man, or it was at least named after Paul Sherlock, who was a great advocate for people with disabilities in Rhode Island. So the Sherlock Plan is a Medicaid program for people with disabilities who work. It's a Medicaid option if you're earning above the 1619B threshold limit. There may be a monthly premium for the Sherlock Plan in some cases. The premium may go anywhere from $0 up to $92, depending on your total income. And if you're married, they will also, when they're calculating the premium, they will look at spousal income. Another good thing about the Sherlock Plan is that it allows, instead of only being allowed to save $2,000, you can save up to $10,000 if you're an individual, and up to $20,000 if you're a couple. So you may never need it, but if you do, the Sherlock Plan is a great form of Medicaid for working people with disabilities. People with SSDI or other types of disability payments may also be able to use the Sherlock Plan. It's not exclusive to individuals who receive SSI. ABLE accounts. So again, I apologize. Somehow in my mind, I got this mixed up with past accounts. ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. Okay, and they allow you to save above the Medicaid income limits. You can save up to $15,000 per year for disability-related expenses, or other people can contribute some of that for you. But the total amount is usually $15,000 a year. In 2020, that could change at some point. If a person is working, the person may be able to save more than that in an ABLE account. Now, if you have SSI, then you can save up to $100,000 total over the course of several years before your SSI cash payments are affected. So if you have SSI and you want to keep the cash payments, you may need to keep your account below $100,000, but that's still a whole lot better than $2,000. Now your Medicaid can continue even if your SSI stops because of your savings do go above $100,000. Family members and others can also contribute to your ABLE account up to the annual limit. So you can ask people for your, for your birthday or certain times when they give you gifts, if they might want to make a contribution to your ABLE account. All right, so now we're just going to review some of the highlights from today. We talked about work, how it increases self-esteem, independence, and financial well-being. We talked about high school and college being a good time for youth to explore opportunities to work and be able to, especially with SSI, to still keep their benefits. We learned about work incentives and how to manage your work incentives. We talked about some of the many different work incentives that Social Security offers to SSI recipient. We talked about the Sherlock Center website and services, how to obtain benefits counseling, how to report changes in earnings, and we talked about creating an ABLE account. So with all those different topics, I am hoping that somebody will have some questions.
Yeah, we definitely have gotten some, yes, we've definitely gotten some questions, Jean. The first one I want to go to is somebody wrote, my daughter, age 16, gets child benefits because my husband died last year. I am currently getting benefits as her caregiver. Will my benefits end when she turns 18, even if I become her legal guardian? And will her benefits be based on my husband's work? And the questioner notes that SSI is considerably less than what she gets currently under child benefits.
Okay, so I can't answer all of that question. I don't know about the parent's benefits. If the parent is still taking care of a child with a disability, I believe that the parent is able to keep the parent's portion of those survivors' benefits, or whatever they're called. But I would double check on that with an attorney just to be sure. Maybe the Rhode Island, it used to be called the Rhode Island Disability Law Center. I believe it's called Disability Rights Rhode Island now. I would check on that. As far as the 16-year-old, she will keep those benefits until she turns 18, or if she still happens to be in high school until she's older, she'll keep those benefits until she's 19 and 2 months. But once she turns 18, you can go to, if the person has a disability, then she might be eligible for CDB, childhood disability benefits, which are basically coming from the same source. They're because the father is deceased, and she could continue to receive that amount on her father's work record. Now that would be, if it's over the SSI amount by more than $20, you said it was considerably more. So that would be in place of SSI. So that would be instead of SSI. So if they're really high, then this person is a person who, if the person can work, they may want to try to get Medicaid through BHDDH if they're going to be receiving those services. I mean, through I'm sorry, I don't mean BHDDH. I mean through the DHS, the Department of Human Services. All these letters are starting to make me nutty on this hot day. But anyway, so that she can also have Medicaid. However, with the CDB benefits, after 2 years of being on CD benefits, this person will then become entitled to Medicare. So this person may eventually have Medicaid and Medicare. One thing with CDB benefits is that those benefits can stop if the person marries, unless the person marries a person who also receives what are called Title II benefits from Social Security. So talk to Social Security before this person marries, because sometimes CDB benefits can be pretty high. They can be up to 75% of what the parent would have collected. So be careful with those benefits. Okay. And those are not considered SSI, just so you know. So a different set of rules is going to apply. And we will be doing another session in the future on SSDI. The rules are entirely different. Just be aware of that.
All right. Okay. Another question, does the student still have to be under 22 to apply for PASS?
To apply for a PASS? No. Anybody, no. I think you just have to be under 65 to apply for a PASS. So if a student has SSI and they're working, or I'm saying a student, but anyone, if anyone has SSI and they're working, and maybe a person is working as a CNA and doing fairly well, but the real goal is for the person to become, say, an RN, and they need more education. It's possible that they may be able to put their SSDI into a special account if they have SSDI, or their countable earnings, and use the PASS plan. So that would be, that was a good question. No, they don't have, there's no real age requirement except that they can't be at retirement age.
So referring to the Sherlock plan, one attendee asks, where do individuals apply for the Sherlock plan?
Through the Rhode Island Department of Human Services. You can go to, I think it's www.dhs.ri.gov. You get a regular Medicaid application, and you fill out the regular Medicaid application, but on the front sheet of the application, you would check off that you're applying for the Sherlock plan for people with disabilities who work.
Okay. Another question here. Since it may be difficult to get life insurance for children who are medically fragile, can the funds in an ABLE account be used in the event of the individual's death?
You mean to pay for arrangements and so on? I believe that they can. They can be used for any kind of, final arrangements for the individual. Yep.
Okay.
One thing with the ABLE account is that they can be used to, sometimes the funds in an ABLE account have to be paid back, not paid back, but if there's anything remaining in an ABLE account when a person dies, they can pay the person's remaining outstanding bills, I think, but then excess funds may have to go to the state. And I'm not really too familiar with all the details, but there are people out there who are really, really knowledgeable about ABLE accounts. If you have questions about ABLE accounts, you can go to, I'm not sure if it's on the slide. I think it might be Save with ABLE, www.savewithable.com, I think. And you can find out somebody in Rhode Island who can help you with ABLE accounts.
We'll actually be doing a presentation at RIPIN with one of our partners on ABLE accounts.
Oh,
so
great.
if you're interested in possibly attending that, anyone, and you're not already on our mailing list, you can join our mailing list at www.ripin.org, and you'll receive a notification once that's been scheduled. A few people have asked if it's possible to get a copy of your PowerPoint presentation today, Jean.
Oh, that's why I sent it to you, so
Great.
that you can send it to anyone who is interested.
So after the presentation, you'll all receive a link in an email address with links to handouts, different resources, a survey we would love for you to complete, and also a link to download a copy of the presentation. And then another attendee is asking, actually one of our own RIPIN team is asking for your contact information again. Jean, I don't know if you can put that slide
Let me
back
see
up.
if I can find the slide. I think I have it. Right. Oh boy, it's easier to just give it to you. I can't find the slide. Okay, so my email address is jfay, F-A-Y, at ric.edu.
Okay, and that will be on this, that is in the slide deck, and you will get a copy of it today. And I've also just added Jean's email address to the chat window if you want to copy it down from there. That seems to be all the questions we have. Jean, I want to thank you again for this presentation today. Thank you to Jean and to the Sherlock Center for helping us get this information out to families. I want to thank all of our attendees for taking the time to join us today. I hope you found this helpful and informative. Again, you can stay informed about future RIPIN webinars and presentations by joining our mailing list, visiting www.ripin.org. And of course, if you have any questions or need any assistance about this or any topics related to youth transitioning to adulthood, individuals with developmental disabilities, special education, healthcare, or more, you can call us at 401-270-0101, and we'll be happy to help you. Again, my name is Mark. I want to thank you one more time and wish you all enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.